Okay, so with the tragic passing of Charlie Kirk, I think it's imperative now more than ever that we examine the quality of our information sources, because with the rise of the internet, social media, algorithms, and companies profiting off of rage bait, we are slowly losing any semblance of a shared narrative. Because it's obvious that we're becoming more divided, not just politically, but also just the fact that we are increasingly living in two very different realities. And we are losing that shared narrative. And it's just crazy to me that people in the same tax bracket can argue relentlessly about those two different realities and both think that they are absolutely right and justified in their beliefs just because they inhabit two different sides of the internet. It's ridiculous, but that is how it's designed. It's very intentional. Now, one of the main mottos of the channel is that you are only as good as your sources, meaning that your worldview is sculpted by a combination of three main factors, those factors being your primary information sources, the media you consume, your social groups, your friends, family, coworkers, along with your lived personal experience. I recognize that I have my own bias. I try to be as transparent as possible about that. In fact, I have a whole video series titled, You're Only as Good as Your Sources, disclosing everything that I watch, read, listen to, trying to signal boost everything that I think is a good value of information. I also have this whole wall of protest music, which I believe is a shared narrative in of itself. Now, let me be clear that I am not a fan of Charlie Kirk. I think he was a very effective propagandist, but I vehemently oppose many of his positions. That being said, no matter how much I disagreed with the man, I don't think he should have been removed. But I wanted to use this crucial moment as an opportunity to test my theory about being only as good as your sources. So I went through an extensive search of all the people that I listened to, checking their reporting, checking their commentary, seeing how they were portraying this Charlie Kirk incident, juxtaposed with other media personalities and outlets, including, in some cases, government officials. Now, admittedly, as many of you may already know, a lot of these sources are left-leaning, but I do just want to mention that I am not a Democrat, I am not a Republican, I am not a communist, I am not a capitalist, I am not anti-business, and I am not pro-big government. I believe that things work best when there is a balance, checks and balances. So I am simply anti-corruption, anti-greed, anti-exploitation. I'm an American, I'm a huge proponent of free speech, but above all, I am pro-human. So I went through and I conducted this sort of self-analysis on all of my primary information sources, but again, as some of you may know, I do still travel into right-leaning spaces quite often because I think it's valuable to break your information bubble, and you can still find valuable information when you do that. So in going through all of my sources, my conclusion is this: there really isn't a big name YouTuber, podcaster, journalist, big news outlet, or left-leaning government official that is actually condoning what happened to Charlie Kirk. Nobody I actively listened to either condoned it, celebrated it, or stoked the flames of division. Now, of course, that's just my pocket of the internet. That is just my algorithm. But if you think I'm wrong in that assessment on a general level, definitely leave a comment down below about who is saying anything, who is celebrating anything. I want names, again, of a big name YouTuber, podcaster, author, journalist, media outlet, or government official that is actually doing those things, because the whole point of the channel being called Research Reality is to be a call to action, because I recognize that I don't know everything. You are guaranteed to know something that I don't, and I will gladly change my opinion. I will gladly change my mind when provided solid evidence to the contrary. Now, people like Glenn Greenwald and Andrew Callaghan from Channel 5 did mention that they did see an influx of people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and I honestly did see a lot of that myself. However, again, these were not government officials. They did not belong to a reputable news outlet. In other words, they were not credible sources of information. They were just people on the internet. And despite the fact that there's a lot of really ironic quotes coming out of Charlie Kirk, whether it's him talking about gun violence and how some amount of gun violence is acceptable to preserve the Second Amendment, or as a cost of having the Second Amendment, or that children need to be subjected to public executions for whatever reason, or that empathy is a new age term that is actually harmful. Still, celebrating his death is unacceptable, and we need to strive to be better than the man that he was. But I do encourage you to be more perceptive of the information you consume and answer this question: is the information you're consuming informative, or is it inflammatory? Because divisive rhetoric is on the rise, and it seems like political violence is not too far behind. Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked a few years ago. We had 2 attempts on Trump. More recently, we had the Minnesota lawmaker who was killed in their home, and that guy had a list of other Democratic lawmakers that he was going to pursue right after that. We also had the shooting at the CDC building, which I still don't think RFK Jr. has actually publicly acknowledged. Super long-winded video, but anyways, getting into what my sources actually said about the Charlie Kirk incident. Starting at the epicenter, Channel 5 actually interviewed the guy that was debating Charlie Kirk when his removal happened. His name is Hunter. I thought it was a very interesting interview. Of course, that's very boots on the ground reporting, actually talking to the person himself along with some other people that were in the area. Z from Z Runs Campaigns, who actually is a part of the organization that is the Democratic counter to Turning Point USA. It's called the Unfuck America Tour, and Hunter, apparently, per Z, was actually a part of that organization. And Z also had a really good take on this, I thought. She, of course, denounced the violence, talked about how horrible political violence can be, all coming from someone who is actively following in Charlie Kirk's footsteps, only on the opposite side of the political spectrum. Naima from Jubilee, who also debated Charlie Kirk on multiple occasions, also put out a video denouncing the violence. And again, I thought that she had a really good, nuanced take to the whole thing, as someone who, again, vehemently opposed many of Charlie Kirk's positions. Tom Bailu from Impact Theory wasted no time at all bringing up the Minnesota lawmakers, talking about that incident, talking about how we even got here as a country, talking about de-escalation and wondering where we want to end up as a society. And I think he's right about this, where a lot of this stems from economic hardship, where if people are always in this fight or flight mode, they're always under constant stress about bills, about just surviving. And if you're always worried about the future, if you're always constantly under all this stress, it might just lead to more radicalization. And one of the remedies that he proposed, which I actually fully agree with, is just logging off the internet, going out, touching grass, meeting with people, especially people that you might disagree with, recognizing that we're not just these online monsters, actually coming to a formal understanding, because you are so much more than a Facebook post or a TikTok or a whatever the hell you do. You're an actual person, and sometimes you just have to meet people in person to actually get that through your head. The Young Turks, which I don't really watch a whole lot anymore, they condemned this. Luke Beasley, who I also don't watch a whole lot, he also condemned this. Glenn Greenwald had an excellent video, as I already mentioned, saying that the people on the left are celebrating this incident and the people on the right are exploiting this incident as more reason to go after their political opponents, which they are already doing on numerous fronts. He also mentioned the Minnesota lawmakers, and he had a lot of really good historical examples. Kyle from Secular Talk also denounced the violence, while also mentioning how it was being manipulated, how it was being skewed to, again, smear anybody left of center. Adam Mockler was also all about de-escalation while also reporting on the facts. Ezra Klein wrote a piece about the need for debate, not violence. Dean Withers cried on air when he found out about the incident. I think Hassan Piker did. The Bulwark podcast did. Destiny made a joke, as he often does, about Hassan doing anything to not debate Charlie Kirk. But he still actually had a very good debate with some guy that I completely forget his name. But again, talking about the rhetoric and where it's actually stemming from, pointing out that you really can't find anyone on the left that is, again, condoning, celebrating, or actively invoking more of this rhetoric, of this division, again, from someone more than just a random person on the internet. Chris Hedges went on Democracy Now!, where he talked about how martyrs, in his experience, are often used to perpetuate more political violence because the martyr becomes a symbol. And speaking of martyrs, you guys gotta listen to the song The Martyr by Immortal Technique. It's actually not a song, it's actually a speech that he gives talking about many things that are still just as pressing today as when that came out, I think in 2012. Immortal technique, The Martyr, I'll link it down below. And even Mehdi Hassan went on Democracy Now!, and Charlie Kirk said that Mehdi needed to be deported, he needed his green card revoked, because Mehdi Hassan was saying things that Charlie Kirk didn't agree with. So much for free speech, which we will get to that in a minute. But more pressing, again on TikTok, maybe he's on other stuff as well, but LV Workshop, another really good channel for you guys to check out. But he's over here getting death threats for making videos about Charlie Kirk, again denouncing what he stood for, and now people are threatening his life, again, for his speech. So that was just really a snapshot of some of the people that I follow, what they were saying, how they were reporting on this subject. On the flip side, you have the Wall Street Journal initially reporting that the bullet casings were etched with trans ideology, whatever that means. Turns out that was false. Tim Pool also reported on that same thing. Apparently Steven Crowder had some kind of inside information, which again turned out to be false, but it does show how much they just really wanted this to fit their agenda even more. But of course, Tim Pool is also always talking about civil war. He's always talking about the radical left. And the fact that he talks about civil war so much is honestly kind of disturbing, because civil war does not help anybody. It will affect everyone you know. It will affect your family, your friends, anywhere you go for leisure, going to the grocery store, just living your life. Civil war is not something to be trivialized, because what that means, what that will actually accomplish, is mass suffering for just about everyone you know. Anyways, Ben Shapiro did mention the Minnesota lawmaker, but it took him way far into the video that I watched to even bring that up. Of course, he talked about the people celebrating, but he did not acknowledge anything coming from the right, which of course is also a trend, that they are not acknowledging things within their own political sphere, no matter how divisive or inflammatory it actually is. So Ben Shapiro did not work to bring down the rhetoric. Libs of TikTok, which is a parody account of course, actually said that this is war. Jesse Waters of Fox News was also calling for war. Apparently Dave Portnoy said that Trump's divisive rhetoric was the main cause for this to happen. Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire said that this is not the time to hold hands and that the time for talk is over. Laura Loomer is over here doxing people and just calling for anyone's life to be destroyed if they speak out against Charlie Kirk. Elon Musk, of course, went hard in the Twitter paint, saying that the left is the party of murder, way before we even knew who the guy was. But apparently that's still true, even if you come from an all-conservative family. Nancy Mace, a sitting congresswoman, said that we should bring back the death penalty, and now she wants to remove Congress members from their committees for their speech about Charlie Kirk. Are you seeing the pattern here? And the co-founder of Palantir, everyone's new favorite company, Joe Lonsdale, said that we should have an app that you can take pictures and report crimes and homeless people, and then if you actually help law enforcement with that, you can get a rebate on your property taxes? Like, what the fuck? That's just the world we're living in now. I mean, it makes sense, right? People are struggling economically, so you can help them turn on their neighbors for a slight financial edge. Pete Hegseth is over here ordering that military members be identified for their speech about Charlie Kirk. Pam Bondi wants to go after people for their speech. J.D. Vance is, of course, pinning everything on the left, saying that statistically they commit the most crimes. Kash Patel just testified that there's no credible evidence that Epstein ever trafficked anybody that was underage. Stephen Miller vowed to crack down on left-leaning groups. And of course, we arrive at Trump himself, who even before the assailant was caught, he said that we need to beat the hell out of the radical left. He also said that he couldn't care less about bringing the country together. Also, jumping in here real quick to say two things super fast. So apparently I did not plug in the microphone when I should have, which led to the audio being the way it was. I try to clean it up in post. It is what it is. Sorry about that. Thank you for watching all this way through. If that bothered you at all, I don't know what it really sounds like on your end, but it doesn't sound great on mine. Anyways, also, this video was filmed pre-Jimmy Kimmel getting removed from the air. So also with that in mind, now post-Kimmel, there have been some voices that have surprisingly spoken out sort of on his behalf, saying that this was actually a terrible move by the government because, of course, the chair of the FCC will potentially be approving a huge corporate merger between Tenga, however you say that, and Nexstar, and ABC is a part of that. So, of course, those executives, according to some reporting, they did actually agree with Kimmel, and then, they didn't want to ruffle those feathers. And so he was removed from the air, but people like Ben Shapiro have actually come out saying that Kimmel should not have been removed, surprisingly. Also, Brett Weinstein made a video talking about how this is kind of egregious. And even Ted Cruz came out saying that the FCC chair was acting like a mafia boss. So that is all very interesting. But of course, I think they see the writing on the wall where if this precedent is set where the government can pressure people to sort of curtail free speech and also make certain topics taboo, that in the event of a Democratic president being elected next time around, then of course they could use this exact methodology to maybe censor the Daily Wire or other right-leaning podcasts or YouTube channels or outlets in general, and they would actually be justified in doing it because of everything that just happened with Jimmy Kimmel. So yeah, just wanted to update this real quick, again, post Kimmel. And also real super quick, Ian Bremmer also had a really good take on the whole incident with Charlie Kirk. Definitely go check out Ian Bremmer over on G0 Media. I thought his response was also very grounded for these times that we are facing. Anyways, I hope this transition wasn't too bad. Let me know what you guys are thinking about all of this stuff, also with Kimmel, down in the comments below, and we'll continue on with the video. Cool, thanks, bye. So again, is your favorite podcaster, YouTuber, author, news outlet, government official, are they providing you information that is informing you? Or is it inflammatory? Are they actively de-escalating the rhetoric and division, or are they actively stoking those flames? Because again, most of the people watching this video, you're in the same tax bracket as me. We live in the same country, our lives are going to be pretty similar, but there's going to be massive division about this video based on what news sources, what people, commentators, whatever the hell you consume. If it's the polar opposite of mine, you are going to have a vehement disagreement with what I am saying. And the real question is, how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this cycle? But just ask yourself, where's that rhetoric coming from? Why are you feeling the feelings that you're feeling? Is it actually economic? Do you just want more economic prosperity for you and your family? I bet you do. Do you want this country to be more prosperous? I bet you do. Do you think this country would be more prosperous if it wasn't for the opposing political party? Why? Why do you think that? Examine your news sources, compare them with what I just gave you here, and tell me why you think that. Let's have a discussion. Because people are profiting hardcore off of this division, as they always do. And so again, while the people that are in the same tax bracket are arguing amongst themselves because of shit they saw on the internet, because of the information silos that they're in, meanwhile, this country is undergoing huge power grabs as they smear people who have the least amount of political power, and we are living under this administration that is actively going after political opponents. They are revoking security clearances. They are going after law firms. They are pardoning all the people from January 6th. They're putting out ASMR videos about detainees going to El Salvador. They're blowing up boats from Venezuela. They want to rename the Department of Defense the Department of War. And they actively joke about invading other countries like Greenland and Panama and bulldozing all of Gaza. And now it appears that people are losing their jobs just because of what they're putting on social media about Charlie Kirk. So who runs the cancel culture now, folks? So to end the video, I don't have all the answers. I can only say what I think is right, which is basically logging off, taking some time to yourself, spending some time outside with your neighbors, with the people you love, maybe even with some people that you disagree with, having those face-to-face conversations, understanding what it's like, again, to actually be in the same space with someone that you disagree with, while also being more mindful of the media we consume, because just like Tom Bailu said on that Impact Theory episode, anger is such a easy emotion. It's an upper, so you feel empowered while it's happening. There's no nuance. Everything is black and white, or in some cases, red. And you just want to strike back at whatever it is causing you to be mad in the first place. So again, guys, we are losing our shared narrative. We need a good shared narrative to move forward as a society. And I think one of those narratives is the power of protest music, because there's so much music out there that is all saying the same thing, and it's all right there in front of your face, while also finding ways to de-escalate what has happened, finding commonalities amongst each other, because this path that we're on, this isn't it. You can hate the other side, but what would it take for you to just understand the other side? Most of the people that I disagree with, I recognize that they are just in this information bubble, and they're not getting a whole lot of counterpoints. I don't know, I'm going to keep rambling if I don't stop. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you like the vibe. Leave a comment down below about what you think of this topic. And if you made it this far, leave a comment down below about how we can remedy this situation, what we can do on an individual level that will turn down the volume of the rhetoric, that will turn down the heat, and I guess we will go from there. So anyways, guys, again, thank you for watching. Stay well, stay safe, stay informed, and we will see you on the next video. Later.